review for this week is not the Tesla, that was last week, not the Audi, but the Lexus over here. It's a really beautiful car. So this was first called the 200T, and then they changed it to the 300. But it was interesting to see that change from 200T to GS 200T to GS 300. Again, it was probably just to keep up with, you know, BMW upped their number game. Mercedes calls their 2-liter engine a 300. So I'm probably biased to this blue color. I really think it looks nice. The LEDs look nice up there. It has an aggressive front, even if you don't think it's pretty. It definitely is striking. Would be the right word. These air vents down here are actually functional, which was kind of nice on a base model car. Appreciated that. And just wrapping around to the side here, it's equally as nice. There are LED lights as standard on. I think I even like the side better than the front. This one has the upgraded 18-inch wheels with summer tires, which help with the handling a lot. Coming around to the back here. Again, very luxurious looking. The exhaust down there aren't actual pipes, they're just kind of covers sitting over the exhaust, which are in more. Also the doors, when you want to go close them, you just give it a nice, very small touch there, and they close well. I really do like the way they mix the colors, but also the materials. The aluminum with the wood, with the leather. Very nice, very nice. Sporty looking steering wheel with nice accents. Also the gauges are extremely nice in there, and they give you a lot of information as well, which is nice. I like how they integrated the screen. That is a nice feature that I wish more German cars would do. Coming down here, I like an analog clock. It just, I don't know, it just kind of is a throwback in more modern cars. Chrome surrounds on everything, even the plastics are exceptionally high quality. One thing I love on the climate control that some people might not even notice is that it's kind of like an analog effect, even though it's a digital climate control there. And lots of tactile buttons. So not only is there that cool, climate control, there's an automatic climate control recirculation, so it'll automatically recirculate, which is really neat based on like temperature and other factors. But what's really neat is this button here. I could not for the life of me figure out what it was. It's called S-Flow, which is pretty cool because when it's off, it just sends air everywhere. But when it's on, it only sends air to where there are actually people. So that's a really neat feature that is unique to Lexus for sure. The quality of this here, which isn't really, I don't think it's wood, but whatever it is, it's just a gorgeous pattern there. I don't know if you guys can see it. It looks so nice. But there is what Chris Harris brought up in his review of the F Sport version of this car. There's a lot of different materials. Like I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different materials just in this, one area moving around. I actually think it kind of comes together and works though, because all the materials that are put together are really nice. So they kind of blend well, as well as 5 different materials can. Another critique is these paddles here. I assume you wouldn't use them too much. I just leave it in sport mode a lot. They're kind of hard to get to, and once you get used to them, they're fine, but then they just kind of feel a little bit cheap for this car, and they're not particularly fast either. The transmission itself is good. Coming on down, even the shifter, very nice. The gearing, it kind of has that gated feel. That takes a little getting used to, but it works well. Instead of the trackpad, which I've seen on other Lexuses, this one has a kind of a mouse system. So you just kind of move it around, and there is some tactile feedback on it. Don't really love either of Lexus's systems, but once you get used to it, they do get the job done, and it actually, gives you a fair amount of feedback there. And this is nice leather to rest your wrist on. And there's enter buttons on both sides, which you can also use to adjust the radio, I noticed. Here's the drive selector mode, and you just push down for normal. That's pretty easy to figure out. A snow mode, and this nice leather console, which is also pretty big. It's sectioned off in here, but it does go fairly deep, and you can actually put quite a few things in there, as well as that's where your USB is hidden, and your cigarette lighter, one of the 2 you get. I kind of wish it was more forward, just if you have accessories you like to use up front, but it is what it is. Even like I said, the glove box is nice, the wood, the stitching up on the dash. Like, it's hard to find a not nice part of this interior. I don't usually talk this much about interiors, but they're not usually this nice. Even coming around to the back here, sometimes you feel like a second-class citizen or a second-class passenger in the back. Not so here. You get the continuing dual-toned leather. You get the wood and the aluminum. You get beautiful, soft, supple seats. Very comfortable. All 4 seats on this car, insanely comfortable. Probably one of the best in the class, I would say. And then you get this nice, also pretty deep console back here for extra storage. And then, not sure what you'd put in here, maybe some headphones, but when you put it up, it goes away. It doesn't look like the seats fold down on this one, but there is a pass-through here for skis, if you're into that, or any long item that's about that size, really. But again, nice quality on this. Even the console here only look very nice, and you can tell the leather's nice quality. If you ever get to feel one of these, Lexus uses some of the better leathers in the business, but they also are very supple and comfortable, as I'll talk about in the drive review. Just a nice place to spend time all around. Really deep storage pockets down here that go very, very deep, and you could almost fit like a laptop in there, or definitely an iPad for sure. Is that if you had a Lexus, this was a great storage space. Now probably not as much, but there's this little area here, which I always love, little secret storage spaces that are kind of unexpected. You think there'd be like a fuse box there, but no, it's actually storage. Also, on the note of storage, if you want, you can pull these out and have a bigger storage area there as well, which is pretty cool. I think you can see it is often you'll drop things like your keys or whatever between this, or wallet between the seats here. There's that little protection to make sure in this car you don't have that happen. That's a nice little Lexus touch that I just love. It's very thoughtful. This one also has the Mark Levinson stereo, a really nice sound to it, and options wise it's only like it's $1,200, which in the grand scheme of the price of the car, I think is worth it. So I think it has a surround sound. I think that's a nice option to go for. And man, does it sound good if you listen to a lot of music. Also, they added a frameless mirror up here, which is a nice touch I always enjoy. Even little touches, like Lexus still has that down. Like when you feel the leather on this wheel, it feels so supple and nice. And even in this has high miles for press car, 13,000 miles. It hasn't actually, it's held up well, so that's a good sign. But Lexus qualities, I guess, never really been in debate. All the driver tech features, autonomy in there. My car, and I'm sure it's actually the only problem that I can see on it almost a year into its press fleet issue. The trunk comes up just a little bit, and then once you start to get it going, it kind of slams up there. So that's just a minor adjustment, but the trunk is huge inside. Several people could fit in here. Don't know why you would. Again, though, they're in grocery holder bags, which are pretty standard, but some cars don't have them. What's interesting, though, is like I said, I don't believe or see a way that these seats do fold down. Luckily, it's a big trunk. But if you want anything really long, it has to be that size. Kind of surprising that was missing on this guy was that there were no heated seats. It wasn't standard, which some cars have, and it wasn't really an option they ordered, even though this was, had about 3 or 4 fairly decent options on it. So that was kind of a surprising oversight to me, at least. Most cars I've driven in this class do have that, or at least if they're not bare stripped cars, they'll have it. So that's something, if you live in a colder climate and something you're used to or want, you can option on the car. All right, so let's get started on the drive review here. So as we lead into the drive review, I actually drove the F version of this car on a track, and it was, for a big car, it was a surprisingly competent track car. And so let's see if this one is competent on the, regular roads. Nice car on the highway. I don't usually film that just because it's kind of boring to watch, but very, very quiet car, very comfortable suspension. It just kind of wafts over bumps as you'd expect. This is one of the sportier Lexuses, yet it also feels very luxurious, which is kind of nice that they've hit that balance. I think better. You know, Mercedes, unless it's an AMG, tends to be on the luxury side, to be sure, in the E-Class. And then BMW is kind of tending more that way too. And then Audi kind of had that middle ground. Lexus now has that middle ground too. And I think until they update it, this car actually beats the A6 in a lot of ways. Which I've also, you know, I've reviewed the A6, I've reviewed the E-Class, so I've reviewed most of the competitors to this car. So let's go check it out and get it on the road. The steering in sport mode really does firm up, actually. I love the car in sport mode. The throttle, with this engine, if you're doing a lot of, you know, spirited driving, it needs the sport mode to keep the transmission, you know, down a gear and keep it, you know, keep an overdrive off and keep it shifting quickly. It helps the steering a lot too. It's very tight and has a good feel on it in sport mode. Actually, I quite like that. And it actually, when it's in sport mode, it's still a big car. So setting off acceleration wise, it is a big car with a small engine. Once the turbos kick in, it's pretty quick. There is that before 2000, there is that little bit of pause. It's not really like a turbo lag. It's just any, you know, car has it that's turbocharged, where with a small engine it just sort of goes and kicks in. Impressed me is for a turbocharged car and a car even in sport mode, how smoothly it shifts. It is one of the smoothest transmissions I have ever, you know, felt. And I mean, I guess you should expect that from Lexus, but they were actually a little bit later to the turbo game than some of their competitors, but it's just smooth. Even when it, you know, the gear shifts are almost, you can't really discern them, which I'd expect in like a big LS with like a V8, but for a 4-cylinder turbocharged car, shift kind of blows me away because I drive a lot of luxurious type cars, and this is the only one I can truly say that about. It's just it's almost, it makes it feel like a much bigger engine, just the way it is so smooth and effortless. I'd say that's a good word to sum up this car overall. It is just effortless to drive and spend time in. The handling on this car, the steering is good in sport. It's quick once it gets going and up to speed, like here we are at 20, 40, not a problem there. I mean, like I said, it's not the quickest car. You can still get a mildly bigger engine, or you can get the F if you want the big V8. But for everyday driving and what most people do in this car, this is actually a pretty good engine. And with this engine price in there, it's actually a pretty good value as well, which Lexuses were starting to get pretty expensive, especially like the LS and things like that. So this car does, in this segment, represent what I think is a good value. It has a decent amount of technology, lots of autonomous driving tech, and it's comfortable and somewhat sporty as well, which was probably what surprised me the most. I thought without an F Sport package, this wouldn't be that competent, but it's fairly flat in turns. This still would go for the F Sport, or if it's in your budget, the F trim if you're very spirited in how you drive. But if you just want something that's a good all-arounder with kind of sporting attributes, I'd almost take this over a BMW. I know that may be blasphemy to say. I own several BMWs, and my first car was a BMW, so it kind of hurts to say that. The brakes are also really, really good, really grippy. You know, it definitely good feel on the pedal as well. So I like that a lot. And then just sitting back and putting this car back in normal mode, you can just cruise and it eats up the miles, and it's very, very relaxing. It's very quiet, and then you throw that awesome stereo on and it gets even better. I didn't think I'd like this car as much as I did, because Lexuses I've always respected as being well made, you know, very luxurious, and that they hold up well. And then the GS, you know, for a while it was actually a really great performance car there for years, but then it kind of just sunk into, you know, mediocrity. But this one really does bring back what I thought of when I first rode in a GS, you know, when I was a young person, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of a sporty big sedan. On to challenge the, you know, BMW, and I almost think they beat them at their own game. Which is pretty crazy to say. A couple of critiques. The blinkers, for example, if you've ever heard a review of or driven a BMW, you know they don't have the most feedback, but if you're tuned in, you can feel when it actually clicks in. This one, the setting between regular, see, hear that click? That's for the high beams, for example. But on the blinker, it's just hitting a sensor. So you don't get really any tactile feedback. A lot for that. Once I got used to the BMW though, it was fine. On this car, I still find myself like wondering, how do I get the blinker off, or setting it all the way when I only mean to set it for once. So little thing, but it's something Lexus could improve in, you know, in future models. Do love the autonomy on this car. It's standard as well. So that really brings it up a notch in my book. It has, you know, blind spot monitoring, lane keeping assistance. It'll actually, you know, steer help keep you in your lanes, radar guided cruise control, all standard in a car in the high $40,000 price range. I thought that was really cool. I know Volvo's starting to make more standard. I wish the Germans, especially Mercedes and BMW and all, who say they care about safety, would start putting most of that tech standard. On a Mercedes C-Class, for example, or even an E-Class, it's a very high-end, high-tier option package to get any of that tech standard. For me, that was huge. So would I buy this car with my own money? The interior is great. It's actually surprisingly fun to drive. It's definitely probably one of the better Lexuses I've driven. I probably personally would maybe get the bigger engine, but I know for most people this engine would be fine. And just the value and kit you get with it, with this incredible interior. If I was looking for a big, you know, 4-door luxury car at a good value that's going to be reliable and hold up well, this would actually be one of the top, you know, picks I had. It's almost as nice interior wise and luxurious as the Mercedes at a lot less money. In some ways, I think it's, you know, more engaging and interesting to drive and a better all-arounder than the BMW, which is saying a lot. You know, a few years ago, I would have probably given the nod to the A6, but it's, you know, due for a redesign.